Hello everyone, my name is Taylor Baggerly and I am the Program and Assessment Specialist here at the Department of Education. This is vignette number 4 in the nuts and bolts of interim assessment general topic. I will be reviewing the purpose of the reporting system. Then I will connect the organizing principles introduced in vignette number 1 to methods for analyzing the student performance data gathered after standardized administration of interims. There is a total of 5 nuts and bolts of interim assessments vignettes. They are all available in the SDE Assessment and Accountability ISAT Comprehensive Assessment System webpage. Each of the vignettes discusses a specific range of subtopics. They are listed in the subtopics columns. Additional resources and websites for each vignette is listed in the Resources and Websites column. Okay, let's start a discussion of using interim data. Before we get started, I wanted to give a quick reminder on the purpose of the Test Administration or TA app. Remember that the TA app is used by certified TAs to start a test session to administer an interim. A student logs into that test session using the Idaho Secure browser or the remote interim testing site. After the student completes and submits the interim, their performance data flows downstream to the reporting system. Educators can then log into the reporting system to analyze that student performance data. All right, let's talk about the purpose of the reporting system. Our new reporting system is an online platform that organizes student performance data from current and previous school year summative and interim assessments. When an educator logs into reporting, 4 organizing principles can be used to analyze that student performance data. Here's what I mean. Organizing principle number 1 is when. So as you are analyzing the data, is the performance data from the previous school year or the current school year? Or is that student performance data before or after learning has occurred? Organizing principle number 2 is why. As you are analyzing the data, why was this assessment given? For example, was it given to determine if progress had been made with achieving the learning goal? Or was it given to find out where students are located before they begin their learning journey? Number 3 is who. One of the great features of reporting is that you can analyze an entire roster's performance on a test, or you can drill down to the individual student level to determine how they performed on individual items. And number 4 is what. Remember that student performance data can be organized into the different levels within the standards, meaning you can analyze how students performed on a specific claim or drill down to a specific target or standard. Each of those levels reveal different facets of information. Like the other systems I have mentioned, reporting is available on the ISAT portal. Before we get too specific, I want to give a high-level overview of the data that is reported out for each type of interim. First up is the ICA. Because the ICA assesses a full range of targets, an overall performance level, a scale score, and claim level performance data is reported. For the IABs and the FIABs, performance distribution results are given. Remember, the IABs and FIABs assess a specific set of targets. Then for all of the interims, regardless of type, they all show a summary of the 5 items student performed well on, the 5 items students did not perform well on, high-level state, district, and/or school performance data that can be used for comparison purposes, and of course, how students responded to each of the items. With that overview out of the way, let's get a little more specific with the organization and layout of the data. As you can see, this is the basic layout and organization of the data. The rows of data offer information at different aggregations, meaning the top row summarizes student performance data for all of the students in the state of Idaho. The row below offers data at the district and then roster level, respectively. From there, the data is then displayed in vertical flyouts. To expand or collapse the flyouts, click on the plus and minus symbols. More specifically, for the ICA, the scale score information is here. The performance distribution is here, including the number and percent of students in each performance level. The performance by claim is here. These flyouts will organize the items by their claim alignment and then show average score on those items. Individual student reports, or ISRs, can also be generated from reporting. These reports can be useful for their own record keeping, or they can be securely distributed to parents and students during parent-teacher conferences. An ISR for an ICA offers up the same information that is in reporting, just displayed a little differently. For example, the scale score is here, as well as in the barrel chart. Performance level by claim is also given in the ICA ISR. In this example, you can see the student is below standard for Claim 1, Concept and Procedures, but at or near proficiency for Claims 2, 3, and 4. As an educator, you can use this information to hone in on what the student needs more practice with, or perhaps where different instructional practices could be employed. Speaking of which, after you have identified the claim where students need intervention, you can drill down to the item level data. A detailed ISR also includes item level outcomes as well. The items are organized by claim and include a description of the item difficulty and the points earned per item. The layout and organization of student performance data is the same for the IABs and FIABs. The rows aggregate different student populations. Vertical flyouts can be expanded or collapsed. For performance distribution, the average scores on the 5 items on which students performed the best and worst, and then all of the items on the interim. An important skill set for data analysis is the ability to recognize patterns within that data. That's one reason for the grouping of items by which 5 the students did best on and which 5 the students did the worst on. While you are analyzing that data, ask yourself if there is any connection between the items the students did really well on. Perhaps they are all aligned to the same claim, target, and/or standard. Maybe they are all of a specific item type. Perhaps this was a concept you developed a really clever series of lessons for. At any rate, when analyzing those items, ask yourself, what does this tell me about my instructional practices? And can parlay those successful instructional practices to assist with the 5 items on which the students performed the worst. Again, as with the items the students did best on, analyze the items the students did poorly on to determine if there is an underlying connection. If so, what does this tell you about your instructional practices and how students might benefit from intervention? Lastly, there is performance on all of the items. Looking at overall student performance could be enlightening as well. Perhaps student performance diminished on the last few items on the test. Perhaps that means students rushed through the last few items. That could indicate that more time is needed for test taking. And let's not forget about our science interims. Results from the science interims are also provided in reporting. In reporting, the total score is shown as the number of scoring assertions the student got correct out of the total number of scoring assertions in the cluster. In this example, the student got 3 scoring assertions correct out of a total of 11. You can also see how students performed on all of the scoring assertions for the entire cluster in this flyout. Now, I haven't talked about scoring assertions previously, so let me spend a little time doing that. Scoring assertions are statements that reveal the knowledge, skill, and abilities of the student upon successful completion of a task. A little more detail about a scoring assertion. A scoring assertion gives educators 2 bits of information. 1, the task the student completed, and 2, an inference about students' KSAs based on successful completion of that task. So what are some examples of scoring assertions? Before we do that, let's go back to a cluster we discussed in a previous vignette. Remember this one? Let's just focus on parts A and B. In part A, the student is evaluating the tabular data in Table 1 and summarizing the change in elk, beaver, and mule deer populations between 1995 and 2004. After summarizing that tabular data, the student evaluates the 2 competing hypotheses in the stimulus and determines which hypothesis, if any or both, is supported by the data. So just from that short description of the tasks the student is completing in just parts A and B, you can tell that the student is engaging in a lot of mental gymnastics in order to successfully complete the tasks. In order to capture all those mental gymnastics, we employ scoring assertions. Scoring assertions tell the educators more than just student selected option A. They provide much more detailed information on students' KSAs. So let's take a look at some examples. Here are the scoring assertions for parts A and B in the cluster. Taking a look at the top scoring assertion, you can see that it tells us 1, what task the student completed, or they identified the elk population between 95 and 04, and an inference about student KSA, understanding of how to interpret the data presented in Table 1. Taking a look at the second scoring assertion, you can see that it tells us what task the student completed, they identified the elk population, and identified that the data supports both hypotheses, and 2, an inference about student KSA, their understanding of how to use evidence to support an argument. In this example, you can see that the student got each of the scoring assertions for parts A and B correct. See the green checks? That is the information that is given in reporting. Which scoring assertions the student got correct out of all of the scoring assertions in the cluster. This information can then be interpreted by the educator, i.e., what tasks the student successfully completed, an insight into their KSA, and what tasks the student did not successfully complete, what tasks they need more practice with. Okay, pop quiz. Where are the interim scoring materials located in the ISAT portal? In your answer, identify the ISAT portal application. Then, identify the name of the tab the scoring materials are located under. I'll pause here for a few seconds to give you that time to come up with an answer. And the answer is, the interim scoring materials are located in TIDE, under General Resources, and clicking on Interim Tests Scoring Materials. Once you click there, a pop-up will appear, and you will be able to download the answer keys for the ELA Literacy, Math, and Science interims. Keep in mind, though, that the answer keys to the interim must be handled securely. Because student performance data will be generated from these interims, we want to keep the interim answer keys secure. That means no emailing, printing, and distributing or posting to other online platforms. If the interim answer keys do become widely distributed, then educators will not be able to derive student proficiency from student responses. I know I've only begun to scratch the surface with all the features of our new reporting system. Therefore, I want to point out that the 8 other reporting training modules posted on the ISAT portal. Be sure to access those for more information on reporting's capabilities. Thanks so much for sticking around until the end of this vignette. If you have any questions, here's our contact information. Please don't hesitate to reach out. Thanks again.